Not sure if you've noticed, but there's a whole lot of post-midterm election conversation about Donald Trump. I know. Go figure. And we're trying to get as many wise and seasoned voices to observe what's going on in this country within the conservative movement and give us their opinions. Which brings us to David Marcus, of course, columnist, New York Post, Daily Wire, Daily Mail. Are you at the Spectator too? How many bylines do you have, Marcus?
Not enough.
Thanks for joining us. So, I don't know, maybe it's me, but whenever, columnists and pundits and journalists in D.C. and Manhattan lend our advice to what Donald Trump should do and what his voters should do, generally speaking, it doesn't go very well.
No, that's true. I mean, it really did feel a little like Groundhog Day after the midterm. There have been all of these times throughout Trump's political career, whether it was scandals during the primary or general election, or, whether it was Russian collusion or the days after January 6th, where he says, well, that's it. The walls have closed in again. But this time it's really different. This time his voters are going to abandon him for sure.
Right.
And Lucy always pulls that football back. And, I saw this sort of like, cavalcade of ink and certain leaders within the Republican Party calling for this again. And not only do I think it won't work, I actually think it's kind of dangerous because what they're trying to do is kneecap Trump before the primary. And my real fear is that if Trump's voters perceive a coordinated effort to specifically block Donald Trump and to specifically ignore their voices, they're going to be rightfully angry, they're going to be rightfully suspicious, and they're going to be far less likely to move on to a Ron DeSantis or whoever the next guy is.
Or you're right. I think you're absolutely right, spot on. That's why you're here. I want this opinion out there, David. And also, I think that it could. Let's take a look at Donald Trump's personality, shall we? This could force him into a place where he's going to burn it down and go third party, do a Ross Perot, which doesn't help anybody who doesn't want a Democrat elected.
No, I think that's exactly right. And the easiest way for him to do that, if he wants to do it, is if Republicans try to do to him what Democrats have done, say, to Bernie Sanders, right? If everybody selflessly now look, first of all, I don't know that this is going to happen, right? But if everybody from Cruz to Rubio to Christie to Haley to Pence, if they all sort of selflessly sacrifice their own ambition and say, I'm all in for Ron DeSantis now, I'm going to let him be in charge of the party for the next 8 years, that's not going to play well with Trump voters who honestly kind of like DeSantis and I think can be brought along to DeSantis, but not if they feel like they're being manipulated.
Yeah, I think you're right. Although I have to say, I think one difference here this time around, it's not entirely Groundhog Day because you're seeing some voices come out and say, enough with the drama. Maybe it's time to move on from Trump. These are people who worked in his administration, who supported. We had Joe DeGeneva on earlier in the program, who was quite critical of Trump's actions over the last 72 hours. People who worked in the administration who were very loyal. Mo Brooks, congressman from Georgia, they're all sort of saying that you're right. It looks like it's planned. It looks like it's coordinated. But I think based on who's saying it, it does have some credence.
I mean, I guess so. Mo Brooks, can, denounce Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump just got the endorsement of Elise Stefanik, who's going to be the fourth, most powerful GOP congresswoman. He's slated to get Jim Banks' endorsement as soon as he announces, presumably tomorrow. So I don't think you've seen, mass defection at this point. I think you've seen a few places where it happened, just like you saw with Pence after January 6th. So this really doesn't look. And hey, I could be wrong, right? We could wake up tomorrow and the polls have dramatically moved and that 30 to 35% who stick with Trump are eroding. That's possible, but I don't see it yet, and I don't particularly anticipate it.
I think one thing that you've noted, though, that I want to drill down on a little bit more is in the same way when people were attacking Trump when he was a candidate and then when he was president, Trump was a proxy for the people who supported Trump, for the people who voted for Trump. Everything they were saying about Trump, about how vulgar and how awful and how stupid and how, it's really what they think of Trump voters. They have contempt for a certain class in this country, and they don't hide it. And I think it's translating now in this. Everything they're saying about Trump, how they're done with Trump, What they're really saying is they're done with Trump voters. Oh, they want their support, but they don't want to have to do anything for them. They don't want to have to pay them any lip service.
No, look, I think that's exactly right. I was absolutely baffled by the Trump voter phenomenon for a good year or two after he won. And the time that it finally clicked for me, I'll never forget it. I was outside of this little hotel in the middle of Missouri by the highway, and I sat down with this family there who were Trump supporters, and over that long conversation, what I finally understood was that they had felt ignored and disrespected by the Republican Party, by the conservative media, by and large. And that's what they were reacting to. So the one thing that we can't do is go back to that, right? Yeah. These people deserve to have a voice. I think that they will. This is why, I think this is under the radar a little bit, but Marjorie Taylor Greene and Kevin McCarthy, right, have been working really well together. This is the kind of thing that we need, not for one wing to suddenly try to throw the other one under the bus.
Yeah, one interesting aspect of this smaller majority that Kevin McCarthy will have, and I do believe he will be the majority, or he'll be the Speaker of the House, is that it actually gives Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, people in the Freedom Caucus, it makes them that much more powerful because McCarthy literally won't be able to do anything without them. And that's politics. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, no, look, I think that's right. I mean, it's going to make the astoundingly large Republican House delegation from New York more powerful, right? Which is a much more moderate group of people than the crowd that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. But New York's going to send 11 Republicans to the House. I mean, let's face it, Lee Zeldin is the reason why Republicans will keep the House. And one last thing on that in regard to Trump, who's taken a whole lot of blame. People ought to know Donald Trump was not only fundraising, but hosting fundraisers for Lee Zeldin when nobody thought he'd get within 10 points.
Yeah.
So there's a tie-in there. He also moved a lot of the ultra-Orthodox vote, the Jewish vote in a lot of these areas. So Trump gets a little bit of the credit for this New York red wave.
I think that's fair. And by the way, let's talk about the reality that Donald Trump is a private citizen. Donald Trump didn't actually have any official responsibility in this midterm election. But meanwhile, who did? Ronna Romney McDaniel, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell. They literally have the job of getting these Republicans elected, not Donald Trump. Is it time maybe to focus there? In fact, a lot of people are asking for Lee Zeldin to be put in charge of the RNC. Do you jump on board there?
I think Lee Zeldin as the head of the RNC would make a lot of sense, largely because he has a very affable relationship with basically every faction of the new right. I don't think McDaniel's been terrible or awful by any means, but look, this was a bad result. Sometimes good coaches get fired.
Yeah.
I would see that. As far as McConnell goes, the classic example of what Trump voters just can't stomach was when McConnell during this election referred to his own party's candidates as poor quality.
Yeah.
You can't do it because what you're saying to your own primary voters is you people are stupid, right? You're idiots. It's your fault. Yeah. Just do what I say and everything will be great. And they won't listen to that, man. I promise you.
And there's actually, let's face it, there's a lot of envy there. See, Donald Trump can go in and say, I think Mehmet Oz should get the nomination, and he gets it. I think J.D. Vance should get the nomination, he gets it. I think Blake Masters gets that. Mitch McConnell could walk in and say, well, I think this guy should get the nomination, and it ain't going anywhere. And so it's pretty easy for McConnell to say, yeah, we got bad quality candidates. It's like, well, it's not like you endorsing somebody would have made a difference.
No, I mean, Joe O'Dea didn't exactly, set the Rocky Mountains on fire out in Colorado, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, exactly.
All right. Speaking of good coaches getting fired, I'm seeing this Eagles stuff over your shoulder here. Tonight, big game with the Washington Commanders. How many points are you giving me, Marcus? Let's go. Right now. Come on.
Where are we? Is it Washington or Philly? It's in Philly, right?
It's in Philly.
I'll give you 8.
Yes.
I'll give you 8.
8? This is like 17 in Vegas.
Points.
You have no confidence in your team.
I don't know, man. I'm a Philly sports fan. What do you want from me?
All right. I'll take your 8 points because I think they're going to stun the world tonight. You watch Washington.
Okay.
$100.
All right, I will. I always watch Washington.
Right. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.